Fine. Let me go to Todd. Todd, as I mentioned, you're in cranes all of the time. You're really passionate when it comes to the employee of the future and what people need to know right now. What are you saying in those columns? What should we know?
Well, I think I'll go to a theme which I think speaks to what I said earlier, but just this idea of what does a sort of employee-centric workplace look like? I mean, I think ultimately that's really what we're talking about, and technology is an enablement for that. So how do you reduce friction? And, you know, frankly, a building can be friction. It can be an asset too, but a building can be friction because it involves sort of the commute and getting there. Technology can be an asset. It can also be friction if you lack access. And so I think as we take a clean sheet approach and say, well, what is it that how do we set the employee up for success? I think it involves things like consideration for their home environment, ensuring that there's sort of digital access from the home environment. I think it involves optionality for, you know, coming into the office or staying home and having some flexibility for that. And I think it will require companies that are self-confident in what it is that they're trying to do, and therefore can kind of trust, right? They can trust their employees, their colleagues to ultimately do the work, and that they have systems that allow for sort of productivity to rise. You know, I go back to the water cooler question. I'm not sure the water cooler ever served us, you know? I'm not nostalgic for the water cooler or asking how do we recreate the water cooler. If anything, I think as we operate in this virtual environment, it just creates transparency. So people that are clear, are delivering, are productive, are going to deliver results. And a lot of the politicking, I think, can fall to the wayside, and that's not such a bad thing. So human-centered environments is, I think, what we're looking at for the future.
Hey, Todd, the only thing I'll add to what you said there, that kind of, I agree with your general point about the water cooler and not always being a productive use of time. I do think the one thing a lot of organizations have struggled with post-COVID is this notion that everything has to be a meeting. I mean, one great thing about the workplace was hallway conversation. Can we solve something in 2 minutes, face to face, have a quick conversation and move on? And now it's, I'll throw 30 minutes on your calendar, I'll throw 60 minutes on your calendar. So there's no doubt that, you know, people are exhausted from online meetings. And it's a result of the fact that because we lack that face-to-face interaction, people aren't realizing there are other ways of getting that done, whether it's a telephone call, a text, whatever, and people are defaulting to, let's put something on the schedule, and people are getting exhausted from too many meetings.
Yeah. Well, and let me just pick up on that because I think it's such an important point. Somebody once said that the biggest travesty was the Outlook default of a 60-minute meeting, and that all of our lives have been miserable ever since then. I think there has to be a real company conversation about what does a 3-minute meeting look like? You know, to me, again, meetings are sort of this blunt instrument. What are we trying to do? And I think meetings, the worst of meetings is people getting together because they're actually not sure what the outcome is, or they want to diffuse responsibility. So again, this just heightens, I think, intentionality for companies, for meetings, for workforces. Why do we come to offices? Why do we have meetings? And technology, I think, obviously can play a big role with that. But yeah, it's, well, we are being exhausted, so we have to have the conversation about what works for us.